All right, welcome back to Double Fries No Slaw. TJ Pittenger, Richie Barnes here. Going to talk a little FSU. A lot of stuff in the portal, Richie. A lot of stuff going on with recruiting, and that's really all right now. Most of the coaching stuff is done. Obviously, no games being played. We'll talk to the playoffs a little bit here in a little bit. But man, how's your week been?
Good, yeah. It's been a fun weekend. We had a Christmas party last night with it was funny. It was kind of like a white elephant. Everyone brought a Christmas ornament, but you could steal them. And I was the third person, and I had two ornaments stolen in a row. So I just went and picked the one that I brought that I knew I liked. It was Buddy the Elf, and no one could steal it from me. So my wife's like, Richie, what are you doing? You just you just got what we got. I'm like, yeah, that's like I knew I couldn't get stolen from again. So good weekend overall. How about you?
Pretty good. Watched college football all day the last 2 days, which was fun. No real great games out of any of
No,
that, but
yeah,
I still watched it because it's still better than I don't know whatever my kids would have had on Disney Plus or whatever.
Bluey or
So
whatnot. Yeah,
yeah, so it's still better. Bad foot. You know what was the saying? Like a bad day on the golf course or a bad day fishing is still better than a good day in the like bad college football is still better than no college football. I
yeah.
didn't even turn on. You know there were NFL games yesterday. I didn't even turn them on. Like I didn't. I saw highlights on like Twitter, of the timeline and stuff. I wasn't like, oh, I can't look at it. But I didn't even flip to an NFL game. Like I would still rather watch bad college football than good NFL.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the Bucks in about
Oh,
two and a half hours.
I don't. Okay, this is not an NFL show. This is going to be a shorter show, so don't yell at us for not getting right to things, right? Like we're going to talk with you guys some too, and we'll talk Christmas. We'll do all that. Like, come on, give us some slack. I try to distance myself from caring about the Bucks because I just care about college football too much. But they're in first place. They're
Good.
favored in these last few games. Dallas is not good. They're trash, and I'm nervous. But like that, all that stuff is pulling me back
Same.
in,
No, same. Yeah.
and I'm like, they're probably going to blow it tonight just because I'm actually invested in the game. I'm excited to watch it. I've been looking forward to it all day. And they're probably like,
What,
this is
well,
me
what,
like trying to hype myself down by just
yeah.
saying they're going to blow it. And
Well, to your point, we're not a pro show, and this will be the last thing I say. But what I do love about the NFL is the parity because you can be a road favorite by 3.5 points and still lose by 14, right? And
yeah,
that could happen tonight for the Bucks. Um, there is no game that I would ever bet a money line on in the NFL because the teams just are so good. The way they build the schedules, the way the draft works, everything. I just love the way every NFL game is competitive. That's why most spreads are between 2 to 6 points every
yeah,
single week, every single game.
yeah. When you end up getting a 14-point spread in the NFL, like they make a huge deal about it. They talk
Yeah,
about like, man, this is can you believe this is a 14-point spread? And college football, like, we had 14-point spreads in the playoff last night,
yeah,
with Clint Ward
and they
yesterday
covered.
afternoon. Yeah. Yeah, by half the point. Or yeah, they Texas did end up covering. Um, so anyway, Double Fries No Slaw brought to you by Guthrie's. You can visit their 3 locations in Tallahassee, 1818 West Tennessee, 2550 North Monroe, and 2870 Appalachia Parkway. If you need some fried chicken for your Christmas Day
Yes.
dinner, they'll have you and be able to get you taken care of. Richie, what do you guys do? Okay, I'll ask this and then we'll move on because I know people really don't care, but we're going to talk about it anyway. So suck it. But what? And you guys can comment yours too. If there's anything really good, we'll read through them. But if your Christmas traditions suck, like we're not going to read it. But really, what do you do for Christmas? Your parent, like your mom, come in. Like what happens on Christmas Day for you guys?
No, so typically we go to Charlotte the week before. We did not this year because we went to Savannah for my mom's 70th birthday. So my mom will be going up to Charlotte. So it'll just be me and the wife, and we're going to do what we did last year. She's going to make some like Oreo baked balls. Like she has a recipe that she does, and we'll bring it into the hospital around 7 a.m. to bring to the staff. Do a little devotion and just thank them for being there to work there for that day, then come home and just relax. So this will be a very low stress Christmas for us. How about you?
Yeah, usually it's quite a lot for us for Christmas. This year it's a
Yeah,
little bit less.
3 kids, and yeah,
3 kids, both our parents are divorced, so it's like, it is that movie Four
4
Christmases.
Christmases, yeah.
um, but um, but this year, like my mom came over yesterday, which was nice. It was just her and my stepdad, so it was pretty chill. My mom's parents are coming over my mom's parents. My wife's parents are coming over on Christmas Day in the afternoon, and then my dad and his family are coming over on Thursday, so the day after Christmas. So it is busy. It's a lot, but fortunately for us, all three at our house, which is nice. We don't have to go anywhere, load the kids up, all that stuff. And they're all pretty small. So it is 3 different events, but they're all just a few people, which is kind of nice. And then on Christmas Eve, every year for Christmas Eve, this is my favorite. Christmas Eve is my favorite day of the year. We get up and we make reindeer pancakes. We just hang out around the house. We watch Charlie Brown. We watch a Christmas movie. We go outside and play. We go to church. I think we're going to like the 3:00 service. And then we come home. We read we make milk and cookies or we make not milk, but we make cookies. We set out milk and cookies. We open up our Elf on the Shelf, brings the kids. Hopefully the kids aren't watching this, but they're probably not. The Elf on the Shelf brings pajamas every year. That's their gift on Christmas Eve, and then we all wear the same pajamas to bed. And then we read the Christmas story. We read the real Christmas story out of Luke 2, and then we go to bed. And then my wife and I watch White Christmas and wrap presents. She wraps presents, and I supervise because I'm terrible at it.
Yeah. We do Die Hard.
Yeah,
that's our Christmas movie.
I haven't gotten her to do like an action. Like we do White Christmas every year, which I love White Christmas. I love it, but it's the same thing every year. But it is just us, and we do go to church, right? But like we don't see anybody else. We don't go do anything. We hang out at home. We have a good time. Like it's literally my favorite. I would say I like it more than Christmas. Obviously, the joy of watching your kids open presents on Christmas is like better. But like Christmas Eve is a really special day that's just really sweet and low key and just us. So it is a lot of fun. So if you have good Christmas.
This is somewhat a food show. My wife is going to try beef Wellington for the first time, so we're gonna get a tenderloin, a fillet. She's probably gonna mess it up, but that's okay. I will tell her I love it regardless because I usually do all the cooking, but she's gonna take it over and go for it, Lindsay.
Yeah, I have. I'm doing your prime rib. That's the Christmas Day thing every year. It's Publix puts it on sale. Man, we shouted out a lot of businesses tonight. So if you work at Publix or Disney Plus or something, we're giving you all a lot of love. But anyway, I'm doing your prime rib, which is great.
Nice.
All right, I will say this too, and then we'll actually get into things now that we're getting some good numbers in here. Our producer Harlan is in the emergency room tonight. I think he's okay because he's literally tuned in watching this. So he's not, he's at least, or somebody grabbed his phone, one. But if you pray, if you care about those kind of things, I won't go into any details. If you want to know, then he'll put a comment down there and you can read his comment. But send a prayer up for Harlan. So if things are a little clunky tonight, it's because I'm running things and our amazing producer, the new super producer, is not with us tonight. He is with us in spirit and alive and stuff, but he's not here in the studio with us tonight. So blame him if anything sucks. But prayers up for Harlan. Hopefully he's okay and can get out of there fairly soon. So, all right, let's talk some recent updates. Richie, Florida State been really, really active in the portal.
Yep. Not
a surprise to anybody. Hey, a week ago we were complaining that nothing had happened yet in the portal. And then the next day they get a couple of commits, things start to take off. They start doing a lot more, which we said when we were on here, this is probably what's going to happen. We're going to whine and and complain about it. And then they'll go crazy in the portal, which I wouldn't say they've gone crazy, but they've certainly made some additions. James Williams, the defensive end that everybody wanted from Nebraska, follows his coach down here, and I assume will start at defensive end for Florida State this year. It'd be pretty surprising if he didn't for any reason. Gunnar Hansen, an offensive tackle from Vandy. I haven't seen Florida State announce that yet. I've heard some rumblings that that'll get announced early part of this week, so before Christmas, ideally. Doesn't sound like there's any concern there, but he committed to Florida State. All this stuff's still up on Instagram for all you sleuths that go and check and make sure these kids aren't backing off their commitments. McCray, the edge from Western Kentucky. Adrian Medley, the UCF offensive line man, interior guard, and then Randy Pittman, tight end from UCF. Richie, I don't know if you're noticing a trend there, but outside of Pittman, which I want to talk about Pittman specifically, all trench players The thing that, yeah, I mean, you got your quarterback, and we've all got our thoughts on Castellanos, good, bad, the other. Castellanos, I actually was corrected on that on a recent video. Castellanos. So the major emphasis here, not that they won't take people at other positions, major emphasis on the offense and defensive lines. And I think Florida State's going to continue to push on those fronts.
Yeah, and I think I have a take here that might not be very popular, but I think it's an interesting trend when you look at the transfers that Florida State has got outside of like a Jermaine Williams. Getting guys from lower level schools like Nebraska, Vandy, Western Kentucky, UCF, etc. You know, you want to have transfers that are upgrading their themselves in terms of where they're playing. We've taken transfers in the last year from Alabama, LSU, and other places that just didn't work out. And if you're leaving a school like Alabama, right, why are you leaving that school? And I think I bought into the you know whatever it was, the Kool-Aid, and said, oh, we got all these guys from Bama, this is awesome. And why were they leaving Alabama? And then you look at the transfers that have really worked out for us. Jared Verse, you know, uh, even like Jarian Jones from South Carolina, like these guys from these smaller schools that just wanted to step up and to try and elevate their profile. I think that's what a lot of these players are. And maybe this is just me trying to convince myself that these are all amazing takes. I really do like all the takes, to be honest. I think they are really good takes, but I think it's better when you get players from lower level schools who probably might have been, overlooked in the recruiting process originally, proven themselves, which all of these guys have from what I've looked into, and now want to get their exposure even more elevated at a place like Florida State. So I'm really happy with all of these, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, you can certainly get guys from bigger programs, like you think about a Jermaine Johnson, but for the most part, you do question, why did things not work out for you at Alabama? And it could work, right? I do think we were probably, like, to give maybe some credit to the Alabama stuff. I think that Alabama had such a mass exodus after Saban left that you just kind of, like, in my mind, I was thinking I was willing to ignore the idea of them. I hate to call us a step down from Alabama, but like, let's call it what it is. Alabama's the best program in the last 10 years. And so even if you're thinking like they take a step down, or is it like their coach left, this, that, and the other, like that, you got the Hilson flip, which he obviously didn't end up signing with you, signed with Missouri, right? Like, just taking the biggest bag, aren't we? But you're kind of thinking in your mind, like, okay, well, maybe they're not stepping down. They're leaving because their coach left. They're doing this, that, and the other, but obviously the takes didn't work. And I will say Florida State has not hit on every single one of their first targets in the portal this year. Like, I'm not trying to represent that. But I do think that there's been a better evaluation process, and you are bringing in guys who were very productive. You brought in an offensive lineman from Vandy who was very good for them this year. And I understand that Vandy is not necessarily the crown jewel, but you're not picking up an offensive tackle from Georgia. You're not picking up an offensive tackle from Michigan or Ohio State or Tennessee. Like, those guys aren't leaving very often out of the portal, right? And so, or leaving to go into the portal. And so, yeah, you do have to find what's available. It's a good mix of good evaluations and guys that you think you can coach up a little bit, and what's there, what's available. And so I like a lot of the takes. The Medley the guard from UCF, graded out as one of their top 5 offensive linemen. He wasn't their best by any means. I'm not trying to sell you on the fact that he's going to come in here and just be amazing, but he had a really good year. One of his better games was against Florida. That's a tough place to play. That's their best opponent when you think about it from that perspective. I mean, I know they played Colorado and teams with more wins, but when you think about like Power 5 or Power 4 competition, you're picking up guys that are really, really productive and that you hope to get a lot out of. And I think there's a better expectation of kind of what you're looking for this year. Like, you brought in Marvin Jones Jr. last year, and everybody just thought like, oh, well, he was a 5-star, right? Like that's going to be our guy. And we tried to caution people and say like, I think that's more of a depth piece. But people were just so excited about having the legacy, getting a guy from Georgia. Whereas you pick up the McCray kid this year, and I don't think anybody's expecting McCray from Western Kentucky to come in and, be the ACC's leader in sacks or anything crazy like that. I do think you brought in a kid that's going to set the edge and do really well. And and provide you more depth. And so your expectations of what you're getting are just a little bit different this year. And then obviously, the only one I didn't mention, and I want to get to the tight end here in a second, I do think James Williams can be really, really productive for you this year.
Yeah.
Knowing the system, having played under Knighton, I think that's also an advantage for Medley, having played under Hand. I think James Williams, though, is a big-time pickup, a very sought-after player. I'd expect him to be a big upgrade over what your defensive end play was this year. We've talked about this a million times, and I'll keep saying it until I'm blue in the face. We're not trying to overhype things after we really overhyped this roster and this team last year, but you can still be excited about picking up productive players that have shown an ability to be good at other places. Last year, you brought in a bunch of guys that didn't have a lot of production, right?
Yeah.
Malik Benson, not a ton of production.
Brown.
Roydell Williams, just a lot of them. Earl Little, there was a ton. MJJ. And this year you are bringing in guys that have production. Now, does it translate? I don't know, man. We got to see what happens when August, September, November, October, November to get here. But I do think there's more excitement around this group and the way that the staff is attacking the portal.
Yeah, and I think that's key, right? We got really excited about, these guys. They were all high 4, high 5 stars, coming out of high school that went to big universities like Georgia, Alabama, LSU. And, we're like, oh, man, we're just reloading. This is going to be no problem. Yeah, 2-10 happened. That happened. And there's no denying that. There's no spinning that. And you nor I are trying to spin 2-10. But at the same time, yeah, I think going out and getting guys that have proven production, right? That is key. Jared Verse was a proven commodity at Albany. Yeah, it was Albany, but everybody wanted him. Braden Fisk at Western Michigan was a proven commodity, and Florida State brought him in. Keon Coleman, that was kind of an easier one at Michigan State. Everyone knew he was going to be great, and certainly he was. And if he was healthy the entire season last year or 2 years ago at this point, I think he would have been a true contender to win the Blitnikoff. There's just so much when you go Florida State, when you look at what we've done in the portal in Mike's time, the most success he's had isn't players from big schools, Jermaine Johnson, that being the one exception. It's players that have proven themselves elsewhere, and then they've come here and they have meshed with the team perfectly and also produced at Florida State. And I think that's hopefully what we're getting here. Again, to TJ's point, we're not going to tell you all these guys are hits. We're going to the playoff next year. None of that. I don't think either of us believe that. But at the same time, you're getting players that have proven themselves at the college level, and I think that's a big deal.
Randy Pittman is the tight end from UCF that you have brought in, and I want to read this about him specifically. From somebody that's pretty well connected with UCF, will remain nameless, but somebody that I am pretty close with over at UCF, and they said this, and I'll read it, out of a message that I got. Good player with a ton of upside that can be used in a lot of ways. He's an excellent pass catcher. He's a really strong blocker as well, and just brings another element to your offense. He said it's a big deal for UCF to lose him. He followed up. I asked him a couple of questions, but then he followed up later and said, when UCF brought in Kylan Fox, who was committed to Florida State at one time, this past class, they were pitching all of these 2 tight end sets and fun ways to pair him with Pittman, who obviously is now at Florida State, and Florida State's announced that, so pretty solidified, pretty locked in. And it just makes me think, with Landon Thomas there, obviously the smoke is that Amari Williams is going to head to defensive end or get some looks there. We'll see what ends up happening with that. We'll see kind of where he is with the knee injury that he had in that Florida game as well. But if you're still wanting to kind of pair those tight ends and have 2 tight ends playing at once, Pittman, an excellent addition to that room. And again, you're thinking, oh, well, it's just UCF, or you think of them in a lower, and I get that's very fair. That's not, you don't have to try and sell me on but just the fact that UCF fans are not even fans, kind of UCF people that are close to that program are pretty honest in saying yeah, that's a pretty big loss. We are not excited about losing him. Really, really good on both things, right? Blocking and catching the ball. I think that's a big deal. And somebody that I'm really excited about him, and it probably does open it up for Amari to go back to defensive end, which needs to be a focus. I like the James Williams pickup. But you lost a lot there too. You need to kind of restock that position because you haven't recruited it especially well. Got a couple of freshmen this year, but I'm excited about Pittman a ton. James Williams is a lot of people's favorite pick, and I know that tight end is not the sexiest position. I'm really excited for Randy Pittman. I'm not going to say he's my favorite commit or anything like that so far, but he is one that I have a lot of hope for, especially with his upside.
Yeah, and I think to your point, he's not just a receiving tight end. He's a good blocker as well. Like he can help out. And Gus Malzahn wants to run the ball, and so does Mike Norvell. They want to be a run first offense and use that to open up the receiving game. And if he can help establish a run game and then also be a threat in the receiving game, that's a huge bonus for you. Like that's exactly what you want and need in this offense that you're going to try to put into place. And I think it's a big deal. By no means is he going to, be in New York City next year or anything like that. But it's a huge benefit to the offense that you have someone now where you can change the number game when it comes to blockers versus defenders when you know you're going to run the ball, but at the same time have someone who is a threat to go out and catch a ball on 3rd and 7. I think it's a great pickup.
So one other note that we'll talk about, and then we'll kind of move on from this, but Florida State also got a commitment from 2026 offensive tackle Xavier Payne. He was Herb Hand's first offer since taking over the job at the high school ranks, the prep ranks, and becomes his first commit as well, and actually has a tackle frame. We've not done a great job of recruiting tackles here. We've recruited a lot of guard type positions and moved him over to tackle. 6'7", 290. He's not rated at all. We'll see how good the evaluations were there, if he ends up picking up some stars or where he ends up finishing. I don't want to say I don't care about the stars, but at this point, this early, a lot of the 26 guys aren't rated properly, and we'll kind of see how they progress through their senior year. Offensive line, certainly a crapshoot that you need to throw a ton of bodies at, and you need to continue to raise the floor. But I am excited about his frame and his size. He certainly can put on some weight where he is right now and I talked with Clay Fink about this at Noles 24/7. Herb Hand likes big offensive linemen. I think we're getting away from just the super athletic, quick guys on the offensive line and really kind of building a bigger offensive line there. So I know there's mostly was portal, but a recruiting commit as well. I don't know if you have any thoughts there quickly on him, but wanted to mention him as well.
Yeah, nothing major. I think Herb Hand, his resume speaks for itself. I think he's a phenomenal line coach. I think he's a technician, which we talked about last week, and he knows what he's looking for. So, it's hard to say early on when he hasn't even coached the spring practice here. But I'll trust him for now because I don't think Gus Malzahn would take him if he thought he was not that guy. And Gus Malzahn, his resume clearly speaks for itself as well.
Yeah, no. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm not telling you that this kid is going to be amazing or terrible or anything in between. But I do. We'll kind of see how that kind of moves along. A lot of questions on Deuce Robinson too, from USC, wide receiver, big kid, legacy. Obviously, his dad was the original 4th and 14 that some of you younger folks may be aware of or not. But I like Florida State for him, so we'll just kind of see what happens on that one. Richie, why don't you actually, since I have her up right now, I'm going to do Garnet and Gold, and then we'll move on a little bit later. But garnetandgold.com. Listen, if you haven't done your Christmas shopping yet, you probably need to get on that. I don't even know if Garnet and Gold can save you at this point, but you can certainly try. Make sure that you shop at garnetandgold.com. Use code NOSLAW. If you're in Tallahassee, they certainly can because you can go pick up in person. Use NOSLAW for 15% off. You may have to hit that overnight shipping if you're ordering this late here on the 22nd or 23rd, whenever you're watching this. But garnetandgold.com, we appreciate them for all their support. Again, NOSLAW, NOSLAW, gets you 15% off there. Make sure that you're shopping with the very best, and that's the only place you're getting your FSU gear from when you are shopping online or in store. Richie, Florida State got some big news this week with Daryl Jackson announcing that he was going to come back and not go to the NFL. I've got some thoughts. I've got some questions I want to talk about this, but before we get into those, I do think that that's a pretty good pickup if last year hadn't happened, he fits what you want to do with 3 defensive linemen. Big kid, can certainly play the nose. There are certainly questions that we'll have about it, but just immediate thoughts on Jackson coming back and foregoing the NFL for one more year.
If you were to get him in the transfer portal, that would be considered a massive get. And obviously, we got him in the portal last year, so that happened. But the fact that he is coming back, I think that is a huge deal. You have a new defensive coordinator coming in. Odell has stepped down, and you'll have a new defensive line coach. And I think that this is a really big deal because I think that, all right, Daryl Jackson is an NFL body. Like, there is no doubt about that whatsoever. Like, he is an NFL body, and he's someone who NFL scouts are glamoring over. They're like, I want this guy. I just need to see more film from him. And he has the chance to do that this year. And if the defense is better, the scheme is better, and he's able to just play his game and not try to play for himself, I think that's a huge benefit for Florida State and what we have coming back this year. I am so happy he's coming back. He was a little frustrating because obviously, there's all the negotiations between NIL and whatnot and what goes on. And that can be frustrating for any fan or certainly any coach. But yeah, I think him coming back is a really big deal for Florida State.
So he did have a pretty tough start, and a lot of fans whined and moaned and complained about the way that he started the year. He definitely got better as the year went on. And I know people will remember the Lagway play where he didn't make the sack. I've rewatched that a couple of times after he said he was coming back, and I kind of think he thought he had him in the grasp and they were going to blow it dead. Not that you should give up on a play or anything like that. Also, Lagway did that like 4 times to other, SEC defensive linemen too.
Lagway's just a good player.
He's just kind of a physical freak. But he did certainly improve as the year went on. I think the biggest question to me is not necessarily whether or not the talent's there. It's more so the mental side of things, maybe the culture side of things too, are the big questions. Like, can he really have that motor of, I'm going to go in and I'm going to dominate? Because Farmer definitely, and we'll talk about Josh here in a minute, but Farmer definitely showed that at times, like where he was just like, dude, I'm just going to wreck things. And Farmer, I think, had a really good year, and I think he'll get drafted high. But high-ish, right? I don't think he's a top 2-round guy, but I think he improved very much through the year. It's just kind of the question of, hey, you kind of had some questions when he was tweeting things like, hey, if that guy goes, I'm going with him, or thinking about going back to Miami, this, that, and the other, all these things that went on. And so to me, it's not really an ability thing. I'm excited that Odell's still there, but I'm also excited that Knighton's there. And so he kind of has like a double dose of coaching at this point. And if he's focused, I think he will have a really good year. It's more of the question of like, man, if things do start tough, if he doesn't have the start to the year that he wants, like, are we kind of back in the same position? Is he going to approach this like, hey man, I'm playing for that NFL paycheck, right? I think Josh Farmer this year, I don't know if he was necessarily playing for FSU. I'm not saying he wasn't. I think he was playing because he wanted to go get paid. And I think that's going to benefit him a ton. He is going to go get paid. Can Jackson have that same mentality? And obviously you want guys to go play for the logo and play for your school and play for the colors. I get all that. I don't know how realistic that is in today's football. I don't really care what their motivations are. I just want him to have it this year. And so if he has it, it's going to be great for FSU. If he doesn't, if some of the other stuff kind of creeps in, maybe it doesn't work out super well. But at the same time, I think Mike Norvell has to take some risks, take some calculated gambles. Like, the defensive line needs a lot of help, and Jackson can come help if he's in the right frame of mind and if he's doing things the right way. And so to me, like, it's a risk worth taking.
Yeah, no, again, he is a NFL body. Like, he is ready. He could start in the NFL tomorrow, or even for the Bucs tonight. Even though the Bucs have a great defensive line, so I'll pull back on that a little bit. But, he has the frame to be an NFL player today if he can fine-tune some things and he can truly buy into a scheme and a defensive coordinator who is trying to show him what is expected. And I think there's a good chance by him coming back that there's a chance that happens. And I'm excited to have him back. Worst case, okay, he ends up being a backup. I don't think that's the case. I think he will definitely be a starter all year. But say he does end up being a backup, that's a freaking great backup to have on your roster.
Yeah, I think it's really, I mean, there are certainly risks when you take any player or bring any player back. However, I think again Mike needs to take risks and
Yeah,
needs to kind of
he has
turn
no
this thing around.
choice.
And so this is kind of a calculated risk. I do think that a couple other guys moving off the defensive line are going to help him. And we'll see. Year 3 in the system, right? He had to sit out a year because the NCAA is a bunch of crooks. And then obviously last year, his first year playing an entire year. And then we'll see what year 3 looks like. People have tossed this idea around. I don't know if there's any legs to it or not. I'm not saying there's any legs to it. I've certainly not heard anything about this. So let me preface the whole question here, Richie, before people start running to everywhere else. Do you think there's any chance that Farmer does the same thing? Like for some reason, there's like smoke around that. There's talk or chatter around that. Do you think that that's possible?
No, I just don't see him coming back. I think, last year, obviously we were very excited to have him back. I thought he played really well this year. Like I have nothing bad to say about him, but I think there's still some sour taste in people's mouths about the negotiations that eventually brought him back to Florida State. I don't think they're looking to play that game again. I wouldn't mind if they did. I think he's a phenomenal player, and I would love to have him back at Florida State again. But personally, and again, this is with no inside information. I do not expect him back. I don't know about you, TJ.
Yeah, I'd lean no. I think, if I could have picked between the two, no offense to Jackson at all, like I think Farmer's the better player. I also think that Farmer would hit your NIL pretty hard, right? Like he's probably, what do you think he goes? Round 3, 4? So he's probably going to need more money this year to stay than he got last year.
Probably
And
looking at 750 grand, probably.
yeah, like that's a lot of money,
Yeah,
and I think Florida State needs to, they're not gearing up for a run, right? Like at
no,
the playoffs or anything. Would Farmer help you? Yes, but I also think your expectations are a little bit different, and you probably need to invest in some other places. If Jackson wasn't coming back and you wanted to make a push at like that'd be kind of the situation. I don't know that you can. You could afford it. Somewhere else would have to kind of suffer, right? Like you'd have to take money from elsewhere to do that. What are your thoughts on this? Pat Payton lands at LSU, something that is maybe a little bit surprising. Obviously, Pat didn't have the year that you would have wanted him to have this year. LSU picks up their second former Seminole with Destin Hill going there too. But thoughts on Pat Payton landing over there?
yeah. I thought Pat Payton was going to have a phenomenal year this year. Obviously he got all sorts of accolades the previous year in 2023, and would have loved to have him back at Florida State this year. I'm not going to pretend it's not a loss. It definitely is a big loss, but he did not produce the way that we had hoped he would this year. But, I thought he would have potentially be, first, second, or third team All-American this year. Did not happen. But, LSU, they seem to be all in, right? We were just talking about how, Florida State, there's no need to overpay this year because the playoffs it would be great if Florida State could get to the playoff next year, but it's unlikely to happen. I think LSU is in the mindset that they think they can get to the playoff next year. So they're going to overpay for everybody they can. And again, I'm not saying it's the money is the reason Pat Payton left. He's flirted with leaving multiple times from Florida State. And for him to end up at LSU, best wishes to him. I hope he balls out and ends up, a day 1 or day 2 draft pick. But I don't think it makes any difference in Florida State's 2025 season.
Yeah, what's interesting is they also took that defensive end from Florida, Jack Pyburn. It'd be interesting to see, like who starts there, what, does either start, do both start, what ends up happening. The last one I have on this, and most of this was about Jackson, but Marvin Jones Jr., I haven't seen any news on visits for him anywhere else. I haven't seen any news on teams to watch out for him. Like Pete Nakos of On3 does a great job of like, hey, these are the teams I'm hearing about, and usually those end up being the teams that guys end up landing at or visiting or whatever. I haven't seen any news there. Again, I don't know what ends up happening there, where he ends up going, but we're 2 weeks into the portal now. The portal's only open for another week. Obviously, you can land anywhere you want, kind of whenever. But I think Marvin Jones Jr. is an interesting one that we haven't seen a lot about.
Yeah, and I didn't think he played poorly this year. I thought he was solid, but he wasn't the guy that you thought when you get a guy who was a 5-star out of high school. He was a backup out of Georgia for a reason, and I think we saw that reason this year. And John Papuch just being moved from defensive ends to linebackers, I think that move was interesting. I think you should have just parted ways with him. Quite frankly, that's just my opinion. Uh, and I think he's just looking for an opportunity for one last season. His goal is likely to be in the NFL after the season, and that's what he's going for. And he felt it was not going to happen at Florida State, which is fine. I have no problem with that as well. The portal is what it is, and I think he's going to end up somewhere, probably a Power Five school, but probably not, uh, a national title contender.
I'm seeing he signed with FIU. I haven't seen that anywhere, unless I'm just completely missing that. Somebody just said it in the chat.
He's from Miami, so would make sense. But
yeah, On3 doesn't have that. Neither does 247 have him landing anywhere. I'm not saying that's not the case, but I'm not seeing that. And so if that has happened and you want to link me, great. But I haven't seen that.
Damn.
So yeah, Boots went to FIU. Yeah, that is correct. Yeah. Lamont Green Jr. did go to FIU. I think that might be the confusion there. But yeah, I don't think Marvin Jones Jr. has landed anywhere just yet. So, Richie, let's give Rhoback some love.
Absolutely. Rhoback.com, RHOBOCK.com. Use promo code DFNS20 and you will get 20% off your first order. I'm wearing a Rhoback polo right now. It is one of the most comfortable polos I've worn ever. They have the best performance gear. Played Friday round of golf. Wore my Rhoback joggers, Rhoback polo, and my Rhoback FSU hoodie. If you're ashamed to represent Florida State right now, that's cool. They have plenty of non-Florida State gear too. That is still amazing. So definitely go to Rhoback.com and use promo code DFNS20 to get 20% off your first order. And we appreciate it.
Appreciate Rhoback. Yeah, you shouldn't be ashamed to support FSU. Like we're far
I'm wearing it, and I have the garnet gold hat from Garnet Gold, obviously. So I'm representing all of it.
All right, last thing, and then we'll get out of here. The playoffs, Richie, were a complete bust, and the first round at least absolutely sucked. No competitive games. Well, I'll take that back. Clemson, Texas was kind of competitive second half. It got back down to one score. I don't think Texas was ever going to lose, but that was the most competitive game of the four. Again, I know Indiana, Notre Dame finished a little closer. I still don't think that was very competitive. You scored 2 touchdowns in the last 5 minutes, just whatever. A bust.
He punted the ball with 10 minutes left, down by 17.
Yeah, that was dumb. Like, what are we doing here? Are we even trying? But thoughts on the playoff?
So I love it. Like, I really do. Like, I hate the outcomes of the games, right? It is what it is. They happened. You had Penn State beat SMU 38-10, Texas 38-24 over Clemson. Ohio State just destroyed Tennessee 42-17, and Notre Dame and Indiana. It looks close on paper, 27-17, but it wasn't that close really. Indiana really had a chance. But I love the idea of watching teams host home playoff college football games. I just think that is one of the coolest things ever. And, Florida State ends up getting screwed in the playoff rankings in the next few years, but it means they get to host a college football playoff game. TJ, you and I will be up there. Like, there is no doubt. That would be amazing. So it sucks that, things were not more competitive, but at the same time, I loved watching college football playoff games on home college campuses. I thought that was just awesome.
Yeah, there was excitement around that for sure. The big issue to me with the playoff is that we just don't need this many teams in it, right? Like, there is such a gap to me between like the top 4 to 6 teams and then everyone else. And then again, from like 6 to 12, there's a gap from, like once you get down in the 20s and stuff. And the NCAA or the powers that be, it's not really the NCAA, but the powers that be in this sport, they're so dumb that they're going to see this and say, oh, well, you know what we need is we need more teams. We need to put more teams in so that we can have more competition. And that's just not, we're just going to have more blowouts. We're just going to, there were blowouts with 4 teams because there used to be such a gap between 1 and 2 and everyone else that, adding more teams is just going to add to it. It was cool to have games on campus. I thought that was really cool. I'd love that to be in the next round. Like, could you imagine Ohio State, Oregon right now back up in Eugene? Could you imagine Notre Dame, Georgia in Athens? Shoot, even Texas having to go play Dilly on the road would be really cool. I hated adding teams, and people say like, oh, well, wouldn't you rather watch those 2 teams play in a playoff game than a meaningless bowl game? Bowl games are meaningless now, but they weren't meaningless to me 10 years ago, like at all. Like I loved bowl games, and bowl games today are trash. But like you think bowl games are meaningless now because of what they've done to our sport. Bowl games didn't used to be meaningless. Like you used to care about winning bowl games. And it wasn't the first year of the playoff, but as the playoff happened and as you got farther and farther away from the start of the 14 playoff, teams just didn't care about bowl games. People opt out. You've got the portal now, which is also ruining it. The scheduling is terrible for all of it. And so, yeah, you say that now because you have the hindsight of it. But yes, I would like to see these teams play in meaningless bowl games because I cared about meaningless bowl games that, most people actually did care about them back in the day. Like it meant something to win a bowl game. Now it means nothing to win a bowl game. If you win it, great. You get to add it to your record. You get to say you were 10-3 like we did a couple of years ago against Oklahoma. But nobody really cares about bowl games now. If you lose them, you just say we didn't care about it, right? Like you take the SEC's motto of we just didn't really care. But to me, like they've just screwed it up. And maybe the worst part of all of it, Richie, is the seeding and the auto bids. It is hysterical to me. Absolutely hysterical. And the NFL, obviously the NFL is the best product in the world. But like the NFL with their reseeding is probably the smartest part of like the playoffs.
Yes.
Like the fact that you're not going to screw a team that got a bye. Georgia has to play Notre Dame and Texas gets to play Arizona State. Georgia won the SEC and beat Texas twice. And on the other side, Oregon won the Big Ten and they have to play Ohio State, maybe the best team from this weekend. And Penn State gets to play Boise State, the team that lost the Big Ten. That is comedy to me.
You want to play a quick game of guess the spread?
I know some of them, but let's do it real quick.
All right. So Texas, Arizona State. What do you think it is?
Probably 2 touchdowns.
14 exactly.
Woo.
All right. Oregon, Ohio State.
Ohio State's a point favorite, point and a half.
What's that?
It's Ohio State's a point and a half favorite, right?
2.5.
Oh,
this one's surprising to me. Notre Dame, Georgia at the Sugar Bowl.
I see Georgia 3, Georgia -3.
Georgia 1.5, which was kind of surprising to me. Like I kind of want to bet Georgia. But yeah, no, I'd love the college football playoff. It sucks.
Penn State like 10 points.
What's that?
Penn State like 10 points. Do you have that one in front of you?
Yeah, Penn State 10.5.
Okay.
Yep.
Isn't it crazy though that the losers of those games now have much easier games than the other two?
Yeah.
Like, would it surprise you at all if Ohio State and Notre Dame won those games? Like, not at all.
No, Notre Dame's a 1.5 point dog. Like,
yeah. But it would shock you if Boise State or Arizona State won.
Yeah.
That'd be, I mean, I like Dilly. I hope they pull the upset, right? Like, it'd be great for trolling the SEC. But, like, I'd be shocked if, and so, I don't know. It's just so stupid to me. The format's stupid. The number of teams is stupid. The seeding is stupid. Like, literally all of it is stupid. And I do think we're going to get 2 classic games. I think Georgia, Notre Dame will be a classic. I think Ohio State, Oregon might be the best game of the entire playoffs.
Yeah.
And then we'll get good semifinals and finals. But we added all these other games. We essentially added 6 blowouts. By adding teams to this playoff, we added 6 blowouts and got like 2 more good games. That's what we ended up getting.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I am all for more college football games and not less. It sucks because there will be one year where it will be like the opening weekend of March Madness, where that Thursday and Friday, every game, you're like, holy crap. They're all coming down to buzzer beaters. There eventually will be a year for the NCAA college football playoff where you have every game coming down to the last possession, and everyone will immediately change their minds and say, oh man, we needed to have this 12-team playoff much sooner. Let's expand it to 16. Like I truly believe that will happen within the next 2 to 3 years.
So yes, we will eventually get good games. I'll agree with you on that. I think I think what they're going to end up doing is they're going to end up screwing all these small teams, right? Like, they're going to start putting the Bamas and, the Miamis and, I mean, Miami Notre Dame would have been a much better game. Did Miami deserve to be in over Notre Dame? Not at all. But I think Miami would have been more competitive with Notre Dame. I don't think there's any question about that. They just scored more than 3 points through the first 55 minutes, right? I'm not saying Miami wins. And I think Alabama Penn State would have been more competitive too. Like, those would have been better games. And you probably could have found a more competitive game than Clemson playing, who was number 16 going into this thing. But the format's terrible. They got to fix the format if they want to do this. Just put the best 12 teams out there, right? And don't worry about, Boise State's a nice story. Arizona State's a nice story. The fact that those are 3 and 4 seeds is stupid. Like, let's not.
No, 100%.
What planet do you live on?
Arizona State is not
this
the best team in the country.
Say what?
Arizona State is not the 4th best team in the country.
Right. What planet do you live on where you say, we think Arizona State's the 10th or 11th best team, which is, I think, where they finished, right around the 10 mark. So let's put them up to 4th. And we think Boise State's about the 9th best team in the country. So let's give them 3 because Mountain West somehow is worth more than losing. It just, come on, right? Like, it's just so dumb. Like, the inmates are certainly running the asylum. It is completely idiotic. What about, okay, this is the last thing I have on this and we'll go. What about Herb Street? Absolutely. So after he calls the Tennessee game last night, I don't know if you saw this because I know you had a party, but after he called the Tennessee game, he was on with SportsCenter and they asked him what the biggest takeaway was, like his biggest takeaway from the weekend was. And he said that Indiana didn't deserve to be in, basically. Like, next year, I hope they put in the teams that really deserve to be in. Indiana, again, was it competitive? No, they lost by 10, which is the least anyone lost by this weekend. And instead of the game where the SEC team lost by 30 plus in front of him that he called, his biggest takeaway was that Indiana didn't deserve to be in. And I'm like, well, if Indiana didn't deserve to be in, then Tennessee probably didn't deserve to be in either, if you're using the results of the game. Like, if Indiana would have upset Notre Dame, then would they have deserved to be in, right? Like, you're using the results to justify your narrative. And you just called a game where a team lost by 30, and you're somehow ignoring that. Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously FSU fans have hated him for the last year plus, but it is just so like toe the company line and do their bidding. Because I don't know how you call a game where a team is non-competitive, loses by 30 plus, and then you blame a team that lost by 10, 24 hours earlier.
I'll call it like I see it. He's a company man, right? He is a very talented personality online or, on broadcast, extremely talented, quite frankly, but he gets his marching orders from ESPN and he does exactly what they tell them to say. And guess what? Who owns the broadcast rights to the SEC? Oh, ESPN, ABC, the people who signed Kirk's paycheck. Who owns the broadcast rights to the Big Ten, who Indiana plays for? Oh, that is Fox. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that that's what he said because I think that's what he was told to say. And, I'm over the whole Florida State snub last year. Like, not really, but a little bit. Um, I can cope with it a little more, but he clearly is told what to say, and he makes a very good salary. And if someone were paying me what Kirk Herbstreit's getting paid, just based stuff I don't believe, I would do the same thing. So I don't blame Kirk, but I think it's clear that he's getting his marching orders and he is falling in line.
It was funny because after Linda Cohn asked him that at SportsCenter, she said, "Thank you for saying that. That's a very good point. Thank you for saying it." Almost like it was like, "Yeah, we told you what to say. You said it, and then now we're saying thank you for saying, not thank you for saying we need world peace, or thank you for saying that like this war over here in this country needs to end, or we need to stop, racism, or all these other bad things that are in the world. Thank you for saying that, Kirk. Like, that needed to be." It was so comical how scripted all of this crap is. So, all right, that's about all I got for tonight. We will not do our live show on Tuesday because that's Christmas Eve. Maybe we'll do it on Thursday morning or something like that. So come hang out for that. But Richie, any shout outs, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, shout out to everybody. Merry Christmas. Truly appreciate each and every one of you who show up every week, whether you just started listening or watching us, or whether you're a day one person. Really appreciate each and every one of you. You guys do make a huge difference for us. And just Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to every single one of you.
Yeah, shout out to Harlan again if you're tuning in
Yeah.
late and having some health stuff. So big prayers up for Harlan. Send a prayer out for him. If you want to get Richie and I a Christmas present, hit the subscribe button on your way out. We would appreciate that. But yeah, that's all I got for you. Richie, I appreciate you guys. Have a good Christmas. Hanukkah, the same day as Christmas this year. So if you celebrate that or something else, hopefully you have a great holiday.
Or
here as
Festivus,
well.
that's fine too.
Festivus is tomorrow. So one of my second favorite day of the year after Christmas Eve. So appreciate you guys as always for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon. Go Noles.